I'm reading the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up, you know what, right now. And this book came out in 2016. It's by Mark Manson, very popular book. And I finally have made the time to read it as my August book of the month. And in the book, I came to the section that talks about the difference between fault and responsibility. And I loved this section of the book because I used to struggle immensely with separating these two concepts. My thought at that time was if someone's at fault for something, they should also be responsible for it. So I would often decide, I'm not at fault for this. I didn't cause this problem. This is the other team's problem. This is my partner's problem. This is my parents' thing. They've done this. And so it's up to them to fix it because they caused it. It's their fault. So they should take responsibility for the solution. And I got to tell you, that is just not how life works. And so I was really happy that Manson touched on this concept in his book. The reality is that no matter what, and I think Mark does a good job of explaining this, we need to take responsibility for ourselves. It does not matter whose fault something is. And we hope that other people will take responsibility for things that are their fault. But the reality is when something happens to you, someone has done something to you, or another team has caused some sort of problem at work, or the world or circumstances have just been unkind to you. No matter what the situation is, whether or not it is your fault, you had any control over the event that happened to you, you have a responsibility in your response. Responsibility, as Stephen Covey defines it, is to be response-able. And that means that you are able to respond. And so the big question is, with anything that happens to you, is how do I want to choose to respond? Everything's a choice. You're always choosing, as Mark Manson talks about in this book. And so while that may not seem fair, and while that may not even be fair, and by the way, the world isn't fair, and so if you're hoping for fairness and equity, you're just not going to get that. There are lots of people that got dealt very favorable hands when they started life, lots of people that got dealt unfavorable hands. There are going to be situations that come up in your life where someone else has better luck or better circumstances or better things that are given to them than you, and you're going to have to deal with that. But the thing you can always control is your response. And so you've got to be able to say, okay, someone hurt my feelings. How do I want to choose now? What responsibility am I going to take? I can either choose to forgive this person, and that's going to take work on my part, and I'm going to have to be responsible for the forgiveness and letting go of negative emotions. I can choose to ask this person to leave my life or simply tell them that they're not going to be part of my life anymore. I can set better boundaries. I can do all sorts of things. I can go to therapy. I can ask that person to join me in therapy. I can ask them to write an action plan with me. I can be part of devising the solution. But what I shouldn't do is just sit around and complain about it or whine about it or moan about it. And we see this in corporate America all the time. Groups and teams are constantly saying that is the other team's fault. It's marketing's fault. They didn't provide us enough promotional materials, or it's so-and-so's fault. They didn't get me the information I needed in time. It's my boss's fault. They're a jerk. But again, you have a responsibility to respond. You are always responsible for how you choose to feel about it, how you choose to act. And the people that have the most successful lives in the world are the people that choose to be highly responsible. They say it does not matter whose fault it is. I'm going to take responsibility for it. I'm going to figure out how I want to respond, how I'm going to choose to respond, the best way I can respond. Yeah, maybe it's unfortunate this is happening. I'm not going to spend any time dwelling on that. I am going to become responsible for, again, my action now, my response now, my mindset now. Again, when you are responsible for something, that doesn't mean that you are at fault for it. Those are two different things. And so I hope today you look to take responsibility in your life, regardless of what's happened and whose fault it is. If you do that today and every day, you practice it consistently, it's just always figuring out what responsibility can I take for this? How can I be responsible now? You will have a better life and one of much happiness, fulfillment, joy, and you will reap the spoils of all the rewards of everything. With that, make a great day and take some responsibility today.